Are you a robot? Today we're talking about Captcha, or a completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. Captchas are a variety of countermeasures used to validate that a human user is accessing information on a web page and to prevent the use of spamming bots or AI from accessing them as well. Developed on the eve of the 1996 presidential election, the precursor of what would later be known as Captchas was designed to mitigate the effect of spam bots. In a simple test, users were required to click on pixelated American flags randomly on the screen to make sure that they can log their opinion. The flag trick was quickly outfoxed, but the idea caught on. It wasn't until about a year later when cryptographer Michael Bloom devised the classic style as well as coined the term Captcha. The most basic form of Captcha devised by Bloom are distortions of text or other symbols which the user is asked to record in their normal state. But more modern designs have become increasingly complex as competing developers create their own versions and malign entities have found ways to circumvent older ones. Shockingly, data from 2016 shows that only about 48% of traffic on the internet is from human users. The remaining falls onto bots, of which only about 23% are considered good bots. They do mundane tasks such as sending messages, indexing content, have built-in non-intrusive protocols and downtime controls. However, bad bots comprise nearly 28.9% of traffic. They're designed specifically to perform unauthorized security scanning, spam websites, and a myriad of other actions which a website could consider malicious. Further complicating the issue, good bots can become bad bots if they encounter something that their programmers did not foresee or intend them to interact with. Because the internet is an increasingly integral part of activity all over the world, of human activity all over the world, knowing that just over half of all traffic on the internet isn't even from human users, the need for a strong Captcha program becomes clear. Chances are, if you use the internet regularly, you have solved more than a fair share of Captchas from when accessing websites. They come in many forms. The most common Captchas today are known as reCAPTCHA, which improved upon the earlier text distortion tests and have implemented a variety of tests, such as the most popular, most common picture identification tests. The primary usage of these has been on websites which accounts and personal information are stored and not to be disseminated en masse. Since its acquisition from Google in 2009, reCAPTCHA is used reportedly over 100 million times a day on websites such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and many more globally known websites. Adding to its modern complexity, Google has married its cookies program to its Captchas program and will record users' abilities to consistently solve Captchas and start providing the alternative no Captcha, reCAPTCHA classification that does not require a test other than having the user click on the I am not a robot prompt. Google claims that this process creates a sort of challenge where very advanced bots can still find a way to circumvent and get access to websites, but it is a minimal chance, while there is a dramatic decrease in the friction that legitimate human users have to deal with commonly on the internet. The latest trend in balancing security and ease of use has increasingly favored this sort of cost-benefit strategy of creating a mostly secure system rather than a totally secure system, because the money required to effectively create something that can mitigate all bots is wildly expensive and almost certainly will eventually be beat by advances in machine learning. Captchas by their nature are security measures and rely on three core abilities used to solve tests: recognition of a test and its parts, segmentation of identifying which parts of a prompt are the test material, and contextualization to ID what a question is actually asking for. All of these notwithstanding, hackers have found a way to beat tests by going around and circumventing errors in the protocols or the formulas and patterns of how tests are presented. The most high-tech ways involve machine learning, but the most low-tech ways to beat these sorts of tests involve just crowdsourcing of humans being paid to solve captchas and report their usage, or report their results. The most common way to beat Google reCAPTCHA, however, according to Google themselves, comes from website design flaws. ReCAPTCHA, according to Google, is a software implemented into applications and generally bypasses fall on the responsibility of application developers. Google has since attached a number of guides to developers accessing the CAPTCHA program to help avoid these sorts of workarounds. In 2008, a year before their acquisition to Google, reCAPTCHA found that companies in India would pay people to sit and answer CAPTCHAs day in, day out to outsolve the program's ability to create new tests. At the time, it was simply a numbers game, as reCAPTCHA boasted that it would take more than 1,500 people working 40 hours a week at a rate of 60 minutes a word to match the weekly output of the CAPTCHA project. Yet, it was found that the brute force method won the day, forcing far more resources to be devoted to the text-based generation of reCAPTCHAs than the young program had any capacity to afford. So, turning to a larger investor, Google bought out the project. However, after devoting serious money and capital to produce a more sophisticated reCAPTCHA project, they still found that the increasingly sophisticated and more troublesome aspect of bot AI could still beat the program regardless of its powerful new additions. Looking into it, tech firms such as Vicarious developed the Vicarious AI in about 2017. This system, whose inner workings were kept secret for years so that those with more sinister goals could not try to reverse engineer it, completely circumvented the idea of more production, more capacity, by teaching a system to build models of letters and understand how they are formed. Thus, this does not require teaching the AI to use previous examples of solved CAPTCHAs, meaning that the AI would learn less about what were previously used CAPTCHAs and how to outproduce them, outquick them, and just keep entering tests to try to solve them, but instead looked at CAPTCHAs and learned how to dissect their anatomy, so to speak. The test would look in and find the algorithms and patterns and discover how the program distorted text in which ways, and it was later found that it had almost near perfect levels of solving the test. This single event is actually what turned Google away from text-based CAPTCHAs and towards image-based tests instead. A long-standing complaint and criticism of CAPTCHA and its progeny, reCAPTCHA, is that those with disabilities or who speak different languages from the predominantly English-generated samples have a very hard time or even an impossible chance of solving CAPTCHA tests. There have been a number of developments trying to amend this shortcoming, though. In 2018, a team of software engineers unveiled a possible solution to the disability and linguistics challenges and also reaps valuable data. The vCAPTCHA project is a voice-based CAPTCHA that requires users to vocally confirm a prompt. Its creators claim that it is a more secure means for human authentication, integrates easily with modern technology, and can potentially collect valuable data for different languages, accents, and dialects which are not commonly recorded or otherwise represented in dictation databases. Thus far, subjecting their prototype to bot attempts to pass a vocal prompt, the attack success rate is as low as 2.3%, while human success is comparable to that of other CAPTCHAs. The obvious concern for audio-based CAPTCHAs is that people may not have the capability, namely a microphone, to respond properly. But as data shows, between 2007 and 2014, smartphone users around the globe quadrupled and now outnumber desktop or PC or Mac or personal computer usages in terms of solving CAPTCHAs, thus making it far more likely that the majority of users indeed have a microphone accessible and that this technology could be easily integrated into users' modern browsing preferences. Finally, the ramification of crowdsourced diction is not something to be taken lightly. The most comprehensive diction database available on the internet claims that nearly a third of its dictions are in English, and of those, the majority are college-based American volunteers, meaning that there's a very small representation of the world's dialects, even of English dialects represented. And it is hoped that the implementation of something like VCaptcha would allow for a much more comprehensive gathering of dictations, and as such allow for a far more accurate recognition of other dialects, accents, and languages which are not commonly used or as commonly used on the internet. As this technology and others like it are further developed, they will hopefully combat the disadvantages of disabled and non-English speaking users when completing CAPTCHAs, and also provide valuable linguistic data as well as being more convenient for more users across the internet. Now, some claim that CAPTCHA's days are numbered. For example, machine learning has proven to have a vast potential we are only just beginning to harness, and while the scope of CAPTCHA to counteract it has seemed quite limited. Google's own machine learning division is the most prolific group to consistently beat Google's reCAPTCHA software. And most improvements seemingly made to counteract these intrusions and keep their algorithms airtight have been beaten again and again. With the proliferation of machine learning like Google's deep learning divisions, as well as other independent ones like the previously mentioned vicarious AI, Google's CAPTCHA division is seeming that, or developers are seemingly feeling that the walls are closing in on improvements that can be made to outpace machine learning, and are looking to other ways to redesign the CAPTCHA projects. While the most powerful AI seem so far to be able to decipher logic and algorithm patterns, they have not been able to apply the contexts which are required of human users. In fact, it is almost always the case that they work to circumvent these. So forcing tests that require context have been the front runner for new designs to hopefully outproduce AI. One such test developed by Google is seemingly very elementary and requires a user to drag a star across the screen and place it above another. That's the word. It says drag a star across the screen and place upon another. A number of other things are shown on the screen, squares, circles, whatever, as well as stars, and a user is meant to just drag the star to the other star, but it never explicitly mentions to drag to another star. It just says to another. Now, this might seem very elementary to us, but thus far, technology's perceptions and understanding not just what is written, but the context required of what a task is asking is beyond the scope of many AI. So, in the future, developers hope to find more little workarounds that do not increase the complexity, but target situations in which AI simply cannot, without the knowledge and the physical understanding that a human would have on taking a test, be able to beat. This is the hope that we go forward with, but time will tell if these will be enough to counteract machine learning, or if it is true that CAPTCHAs are seeing an end of an era.